The regions of the lower astral represent dense and dark spaces where the lowest areas of the spiritual plane are located. These places are formed by dense spiritual fluids, resulting from the interaction of disembodied beings who, for various reasons, maintain their energies in an inferior state, as well as from the negative emotional emanations of incarnated beings. Emotions such as fear, anger, envy, lust, hatred, and revenge contribute to the creation of these regions, where the emotional scum of humanity is deposited. The concept of vibration is central to the explanation of these regions, as, according to the law of vibrational correspondence, denser and lower frequency energies are attracted to these areas. This creates a landscape where impure and turbulent energy predominates. The environment of the lower astral is a distortion of the physical world, completely deformed, without harmony, and permeated by psychic chaos. Descriptions of these areas include a desolate landscape, devoid of beauty or vitality, with great abysses and cliffs, rivers of black and fetid waters, and twisted and poisonous vegetation, which become part of the torture the souls experience. The region is marked by constant pressure on the spirits who inhabit it, giving the impression that the souls are trapped in a mental and emotional prison, from which it is difficult to escape. These souls often face a constant spiritual hunger and an immense thirst for relief, but are unable to find a source of elevated consciousness or healing. They are constantly exploited and vampirized by their own uncontrolled emotions and the dense energies around them. This process is described as a kind of emotional vampirism, where the souls feed off each other's suffering, perpetuating the cycle of pain and degradation. The suffering of the souls is amplified by emotional storms, which arise from feelings of hatred, anger, revenge, and despair. These storms are compared to whirlpools of black sand, where dark and toxic energy creates violent disturbances, both in the spiritual plane and in the emotions of the souls involved. The energy of these storms is so intense that it can affect even the higher spirits who attempt to help the lost souls. These benefactor spirits face great challenges in navigating through these lower astral zones, as the dense spiritual matter harms their spiritual body, or perispirit, making their task even more difficult. The geography of the lower astral is similar to the physical world but deformed and deteriorated. While there are rivers, lakes, mountains, and forests, all these elements have a corrupt and malformed nature. For example, the rivers, instead of being clear and nourishing, are filled with fetid substances and turbulent movement. The land, instead of being fertile, is dry and barren, with only poisonous vegetation that further contributes to the suffering of the souls trapped there. The atmosphere is oppressive and heavy, making it difficult even for the most experienced souls attempting to descend to these regions to perform some act of help. The ascension process for souls trapped in these zones is extremely difficult and depends on a radical internal purification process. Even though these souls desire to escape suffering, they lack the strength necessary to break the emotional and spiritual bonds that bind them to these lower states of consciousness. For a soul to ascend to higher spiritual planes, it needs to transform its lower characteristics, such as selfishness, anger, greed, lust, and pride, replacing them with higher virtues like love, forgiveness, humility, patience, and altruism. This process is painful and requires the soul to deeply repent and become aware of its errors. The descent of the benefactor spirits into the lower astral is an act of great courage and dedication. These spirits, who are normally inhabitants of higher planes, must cloak themselves with denser and heavier fluids to adapt to the conditions of the lower spiritual environment. Even though these benefactors possess a high degree of spiritual purity, their task of helping the lost souls requires them to conceal their true spiritual nature to avoid being easily detected. This concealment of their true identity is necessary for the help process to be effective, as the souls inhabiting these regions cannot perceive the high vibrations of these spirits, and if they did, they might feel even more desperate. The sensations experienced by those who visit the lower astral regions are intensely negative. There is a sense of almost unbearable oppression, a distress that tightens the heart, and a profound feeling of loneliness. The morbid silence that prevails before emotional storms creates a sense of anxiety and despair, as if something extremely negative is about to happen. When the emotional storms and whirlpools finally occur, they become almost unbearable for the beings present. The landscape, the nature, and even the basic elements of the environment are filled with hostile and threatening energy, and the souls feel increasingly trapped in a cycle of suffering. The absence of light and the lack of clarity in this lower plane are other striking characteristics. This dark and opaque environment, without any spiritual luminosity, prevents any kind of positive energy or creativity from manifesting. In contrast, the higher regions, which are vibrationally more elevated, are described as places of harmony, peace, and fraternity, where spirits can interact in a constructive and loving way. The lack of light in the lower astral creates a reality of isolation and continuous suffering, where the souls inhabiting this plane are completely submerged in their disturbing emotions, without any higher guidance to help them ascend. In summary, the lower astral is a plane where souls are trapped in their own negative emotions, in a spiritual prison from which escape is only possible through a deep and painful transformation. The regions are described as places of incessant suffering, where souls must undergo a purification process to ascend to higher planes, leaving behind the dense and destructive vibrations that keep them trapped in this cycle of pain. This transformation process can be assisted by benefactor spirits, but it requires courage, sacrifice, and effort for the lost souls to finally find redemption in light. If you liked what you just saw and want to learn more about the fascinating spiritual world, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell so you won't miss any new videos. Leave a like if you liked the content, as it helps us grow and bring even more valuable information to you. Share with your friends and help spread the knowledge. Together, we can make a difference in our understanding of the spiritual plane.